Spiritually, the full moon is a magical time for us all. It's a great time to get your essential oils out and do a whole range of workings, meditations, and healings. And today we're going to talk about our favorite essential oils for using the full moon, for using on the full moon, I should say. Joining me today is Liz. How are you today, Liz?
I'm very well, thank you. And I'm looking forward to this because I am a bit of a lunatic. As a Cancerian, we love the moon, and I gave up sleeping on the full moon a long, long time ago. So I have a lot to say.
It is really interesting just when you talk to the general public about the full moon, especially if you know anyone who works in the police force or works at a hospital, they will say that they notice a difference on that night of the full moon. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, my daughter's a paramedic, and she's the most cynical person in the world. She'll be like, oh, there's absolutely nothing spooky in the world. But she'll also go, oh, I really don't want to work on the full moon because people, yeah, a lot more mental health issues.
Now, one of the things when we talk about that is we've got to think about the energy of the full moon. So I love to think of it from a astronomical point of view. What actually creates the full moon is that we have the Earth in the middle. You can even imagine that my head is the Earth. The sun is on one side, and the sun for many of us represents the masculine or the yang energy. And directly on the opposite side, fully illuminated, is the moon. And that's why we get that full illuminated moon. So when we think about it, for us here on Earth, we have the masculine and the feminine in harmony and in balance on opposite sides of the earth. And this is a really great time for bringing those two energies together. So we will talk about what it's great for. But one thing I get on my little high horse about when it comes to the full moon is people love to write down what they want to let go of and set it on fire or bury it or do different things like that. Now this is a creation time. This is a birthing time, and I get worried if you're focusing on something on the full moon and trying to get rid of it. Sometimes whether you think about you want it or you don't want it, where your attention goes, energy definitely flows on the full moon. You've got to be really wary and maybe leave the banishing until the dark moon. But the full moon is a really great time for manifestation and creating, isn't it, Liz?
Yeah, it definitely is. And I, when I was doing the Melissa work, the women of long ago in Europe, it's thought would bleed with the moon.
Mm.
Because they were so close to the equator, but also there was no light pollution. So that's the first thing I would say to people. If you're in a place where there's quite a lot of light pollution and you're struggling to kind of equalize your menstruation and get your cycle right, yes, use essential oils, but also really look at seeing if there's a way that you can block out the artificial light through your windows, because artificial light can really screw with your menstrual cycle. So of old, they didn't have that. They would have this natural cycle where it's thought that they would ovulate on the full moon. And when I started to think about that, that really brought to life these magical cycles that these women had and how the rituals fitted in, because also their calendar aligned with their cycle. So the first of the month would be the new moon. And so you would always know that you were ovulating on the 14th of the month, which I thought was very helpful. And the most helpful thing I found was thinking that a pregnancy was 10 moons long rather than 9.5 months. And I was like, oh, that's just ridiculous that we've got rid of that. That's so indicative of the fact that we live in a male society. 10 moons long, that's so much more romantic of being able to plot through where things are. So this idea that things come to a massive fruition at the full moon. And of course, if you are working on cycles where you are writing intentions at the new moon, this is where you kind of look your half year look and go, right, how far have I come? What have I got to be able to do to put that right? And I really love what you said about don't focus on the negative, because that's where energy flows where to intention. We know that. And so this idea of thinking about things in axes, right? This is what I don't want. This is what I do want. And so for me, I think people now we're working in this sort of more metaphysical environment, perhaps people are starting to realize that I consider myself to be quite an angry person. It comes up a lot, I've noticed, when I'm writing. Um, and it is something I do get furious about things. So for me, the full moon is about a lot of things, but I really try to focus on forgiveness at the full moon, because anger hurts nobody but me, right? And so I really want to be able to bring this energy of forgiveness into my body. And I just love the moon. There's something so magical about looking out at it. So it makes me quite a benevolent spirit anyway when the moon's out. So this works for me. And so I thought the first oil I'd love to introduce would be hemp essential oil, because we don't talk about that very much. So hemp is obviously the cannabis plant, but it's slightly different. It doesn't have the psychoactive constituents, and anyway, cannabinoids don't pass through distillation. So we have this, it's essentially what they make ropes out of, and hemp frocks and things like that. The essential oil is just so beautiful. When I was working on the cannabis book, I thought, well, I'm going to go and get me some hemp oil. And I was expecting it to be very different to what it is. It doesn't have that kind of dirty smell that cannabis tends to get. It's kind of a grubby smell, isn't it, from the cannabinoids? But instead, it smells like freshly mown hay. It's just beautiful. And so you immediately feel like you're in a field of newly mown hay in the sunshine. Close your eyes, and every time it made me think my turn as if I'm looking at the person and be able to see things from their point of view. And for me, that is really, really helpful medicine. And I'm not saying that it works in one moon, but just that cycle of kind of going, right, what do I feel I want to let go of? And it will always be anger to me. Always. Anger and worry about money will be the things I want to let go of. So this idea of, right, on the full moon, I'm going to sit down with my hemp essential oil and just consider what part I might have played in that, or what didn't I see that was going on behind the surface, the curtains. And yeah, so hemp essential oil, I just think, is a really magical oil, and of course, it belongs to the cannabis plant. There's not many plants that are more magical than cannabis, but this, as I say, is non-psychoactive, really, really calming, soothing, very simple to use, no contraindications, and I love it on the full moon.
I must admit, I've never actually worked with hemp essential oil and not even experienced the smell of it. So I am intrigued at that beautiful hay aroma. We talk a lot, and I normally bring it up that what an oil does physically, it does metaphysically. What would you use hemp oil for on the physical level?
Well, it doesn't have that many uses, to be honest, because the good stuff's gone out of it. But it's quite refreshing. I wouldn't say it was uplifting. It's not, but it is nice for digestion. But that's the only thing really that I found on the physical body. I think that its beauty is on the emotional and the mental body.
Interesting. Now, when it comes to essential oils on the full moon, there is one that believe is the best essential oil of all. It kind of knocks out all the others, and that is jasmine. Let me kind of plead my case and why I think jasmine is the best oil that everyone should have with them when they're working with the full moon or around the full moon time. Now, one, the Greeks and the Romans would attribute different colored plants to different planets. White flowers, which jasmine is associated with the moon. So that's one. Secondly, it is a night blooming flower, and so it is connected to the night as well. Three, it kind of has that really euphoric, magical kind of aroma to it. It is quite hypnotizing, and like the moon is as well. I even love the shape of the jasmine flower. I often think when we've got a field of jasmine growing, in the night sky above and the full moon, you've got a field of stars on the ground, and so it's like as above, so below. The heavens are being reflected on Earth as well. And even when we get into the tarot and what the moon represents in the tarot, it's very much to do with emotions and emotional upheaval. And obviously, around the full moon, because we are watery and all those watery emotions start going, we are, or could possibly become a bit more of a lunar tick. Jasmine is one of our favorite oils, and we've talked about this in the past with depression and different emotional upsets as well. So I just find it to be so magical. It is a very high vibration oil and very spiritual in the way that it works, and we can kind of expand on that a little bit. But I think if it is a more expensive oil, but it is an oil that I break out and I will work with during the day, but especially in the night around the full moon and the night either side, that kind of 3 night bracket. So I absolutely love jasmine.
Yeah, you stole one off my list. I absolutely agree with that. And as a bee priestess, I got to bring the insects into this because it's something to really consider about how a plant works. How does it invite insects in? Because, of course, for the most part, the essential oils are to attract pollinators or to deter any kind of munching on the leaves. And the jasmine doesn't do anything in the day. It does all of its magic at night. So its pollinators are moths and bats and mosquitoes. And so yeah, it's alive. It's much more alive at night than it is at in the daytime. And people who've watched us for a long time will know exactly what I'm going to say because I just think it's the loveliest quote. Is a Sanskrit saying about jasmine that where there is jasmine, there can be no worries. And that just is it just like lets worry flow away from you. But we talked about how the full moon would be the ovulation. Naturally, our bodies should ovulate and become fuller. Of course, the moon is the goddess, right? She's in her most splendid. Of course, that's when a woman should ovulate. But there's something so voluptuous and sensuous and beguiling about Jasmine. So, yes, I would definitely use her for purely just relaxing and sort of melting into the softness of the moon energy. But also, if you're thinking of doing any kind of moon magic for love or for sensuality or sex, or because she of course is ruled not only by the moon but by Venus, then money as well. That's the energy that flows when you've got jasmine around you. And for me, jasmine, one would always want to wear jasmine. You just feel so rich and full when you've got jasmine. So anointing oils, body butters, in the bath if you're feeling very, very opulent and like you can spare that amount of money on the bath. But I just think it's the most beautiful oil. And when you think about it from an Ayurvedic point of view, the medicine point of view, the physical medicine, it matches almost exactly with the qualities of the moon. That she is so cooling, that she is so calming. And you look out the window and I actually can see the moon because Adam made me get up at an ungodly hour. So the moon is bright, bright white in the sky, and jasmine is so good for if you've got like a pitta complexion like mine. So you've got this fiery nature, this fiery sort of body that always gets hot and irritated, but very, very pale skin. Jasmine is the white flowers of the jasmine is so good for that kind of pitta disposition. Anything that gets hot in the body, inflamed in the body, but is pale or should be pale and has gone red. All of those are jasmine qualities.
It was interesting what you're saying before about it would be great if we did have a calendar that fit with the moon. And I have seen other cultures or proposed calendars where we have a 28-day month and we have 13 months of the year. And that would work out quite well because our new moon would always be on the first. And then so on a Sunday, on the 14th would be the full moon. So we could slow down on that day. But one of the things that is a bit of a challenge is the full moon might be on a Tuesday or it might be on a Friday the next month. And we often can't slow down. We've still got to be in that productive yang state. And this is when the yin energy is at its fullest. And we should try and find those opportunities. So I'd really recommend that during the day, if you can find a moment with jasmine, anointing yourself with jasmine can be really powerful as well. When it comes to working with jasmine spiritually, I find it to be a really great one. There are lots of love oils, but jasmine is for spiritual love. If you're looking for a soulmate, for someone where you and you kind of a spiritual kin are aligned, it can be really, really beautiful to work with jasmine in that way. My other suggested way of working with jasmine is just like we do with our birthday cake and birthday candles. All you do is you simply pop a drop in your hands, warm it up, and think about what you would like to manifest on the full moon. Then look at the full moon and blow that off. And it is said that jasmine helps to carry your wishes to the ears of the gods. And so I really love just that simple exercise that we could do every full moon, even if we don't have the time or space to do something a little bit more elaborate. I think it's a really magical way to use the oil.
You're such a romantic. I love that. Very good at these little rituals. I love that. I just want to add something to what you were saying about the spiritual love. I think that is absolutely true, but there is a physical dimension as well. If somebody is having sexual difficulties, sexual dysfunction, frigidity, impotence, I hate the word frigidity, but the inhibitions around sex, anything where libido has dropped, and that is because your emotions go, no, I just don't want to go there. That's what Jasmine is so good at. So coaxing people after trauma or after they have been feel betrayed or angry, and you really want to kind of get back into that space, but your body's going, I don't think so. Jasmine's really good at going, don't worry, don't worry. Where there is Jasmine, there can be no worries. It's one of its main talents.
If people want to dive a little bit further into jasmine, we've done a whole episode just on jasmine. And in that, we talk about how there are kind of two main types of jasmine. There's jasmine grandiflora. Is it grandiflora?
Grandiflorum, greatest
Grandiflorum.
flower.
Yep. And then
Mm-hmm.
sambac. And I tend to find that sambac has that more sexual, intimate kind of sacral chakra kind of energy, whereas the former is a bit more of that pure spiritual in that way. I don't know if you'd agree with that, but that's just how I've tended to find as I've worked with them each, separated them a little bit. But they are
I
interchangeable.
No, I definitely agree that is true, but I think like we're already at a 5 out of 10 sensuality already. We're halfway there, and then the Sambac like nudges it further. Because I didn't really start working with Jasmine Sambac till do the maths, maybe about 4 5 years ago, maybe. And I bought them from Kathy's Attars, and it was the first one that I had ever used. And yeah, I mean, it's like, the most grungy, sensuous vibration. But it was already there with the Grandiflorum that I'd been using for all of those years before. But yeah, just as a pointer, if you're looking for a tremendous Sambac, Kathy's Attars has one. Yeah.
Now, I'm going to stick with white flowers for my theme for the moment. You know, we often think about the full moon, and a lot of people have this perception on the full moon is this is a time, like our birthday candles, it's your time to make a wish. But as we talked about in previous episodes, when it comes to manifestation, is you must become a vibrational match to what you want to manifest into your life. It's no good wanting to be a millionaire, but behaving like someone who isn't worthy of that money, wanting this amazing partner, but also acting like a trash bag yourself. So this is where Neroli comes in. Neroli is a beautiful white petaled flower, of course, gifted to us from the bitter orange tree. It's from the blossoms. And what I love about Neroli is it has this long history of enticement and getting out of our comfort zone. So as it said that nymphs would use the scent of Neroli to beckon young men and women out of their bedchambers at night. It is said that ladies of the night would use it to attract clients. Sometimes the blossoms would be scattered on the beds of newlyweds to help the newlyweds to feel relaxed and comfortable with each other on their first night together. And even Cleopatra, she mixed jasmine and neroli and anointed her sails when she sailed up the Nile to go and seduce Mark Antony. Now, whether we take the myth or we look at different studies where they've found that when they diffused neroli in one room and had a control group in the other, where they were getting them to do lateral thinking and thinking outside of the square kind of tasks, those that were inhaling the neroli seemed to perform better. So what I love about neroli is neroli, first of all, helps us to start thinking, well, if I do what I've always done, I'm going to get what I've always got. And I'm looking at the universe on this powerful day of the full moon to manifest something new in my life. So if I want the universe to become something new, what do I have to do to match that? What do I have to be in that new way as well? The other beautiful thing, because Neroli does have quite a high lineal content, it's really relaxing. I love it for trauma and stress and all those different things. But in this respect, it allows us to feel comfortable to go, okay, well, I guess I'm going to have to make that phone call. I guess I'm going to have to change that behavior. That's a little bit scary. I'm a little bit nervous about it, but Neroli is really quite comforting. And just like the nymphs, beckoning the young men and women out of their bedchambers, I find Neroli helps to entice you out of your comfort zone to something that could be better, more pleasurable, and more luscious than the life you have right now.
I love that. You've been collecting lots of data there. That was loads and loads of information. My favorite information about Neroli at the moment, and it really fits, I think, with the idea of the full moon, that the full moon is when we are at our most majestic, but then we start to wane, the moon starts to wane. That so good in menopause. Some of the most fantastic studies are so helpful about just women who have just been inhaling neroli for just 5 minutes over 5 days. So they did it for three times a day over 5 days. And not only did their mood swings settle, their hot flushes calmed down, their night sweats calmed down, but their libido returned. And so if that's interesting to you, if you have a look on my channel, last month I did an in-depth commentary about that particular experiment that they did, and then I did a 10-minute meditation with Neroli specifically around menopause. I just think it's so good for mood. It's a really, really important oil. Sadly, it's really expensive, but I think if you're using it or working with it, we're going to say working with it, for that kind of settling your mood and just really helping you to feel calmer and more in your own space, it's well worth spending that money. It's a fantastic oil.
I would even propose, because I talk about working with the full moon not only on the night but on the night either side. Neroli could be a really good one leading up to the full moon, so that night prior to, where you think about, okay, well, this is what I want to create, but I've got to become this as well. And then the night after as well, when you're like, okay, well, that's what I've asked for. Now I've got to get into action as well because the universe isn't going to home deliver. So, and then save your jasmine for the full moon. Just an idea. But obviously, we encourage everyone to experiment and work out what's going to work best for them. But definitely work out that. Oh, check out that video from Liz. That sounds amazing, Liz.
Yeah, and actually YouTube were absolutely mad for it. So when you put a video out, it sort of feeds it to people like breadcrumbs impressions, and it gave me 35,000 impressions in one day. That it was just like, everybody's got to see this. It was really interesting to watch how it exploded. But it's really important stuff. This is one of the most important pieces of information in aromatherapy at the moment, I think, because the doctor doesn't really have tremendous medicine for menopause, and this is one of this showed really good results really, really fast.
Sorry to interrupt for just a moment. I hope you're enjoying this episode of Sixth Sense. Now, you're probably getting rather excited about essential oils, and you might be tempted to go out and just grab some. But did you know the essential oil world is not regulated, and a lot of what it says on the label is not governed by anyone? A fun fact, which is not so fun, is that 75% of all oils that are sold as pure, natural, or organic lavender are not even from a plant. So how do you know what's real? Well, I went looking for that question a long time ago, and I found doTERRA to be a really reliable source of high quality essential oils. They don't just test their oils themselves, but at the end of the process, they have an independent third party verify and double check their oils to make sure that you are getting what nature intended purely from the plant. They also source where nature intended the plants to grow as well. If you want to grab hold of some essential oils from doTERRA, then I offer a discount code, and this is available no matter where you are in the world. Now, I don't want everyone to get essential oils. I want everyone to use essential oils. So when you become one of my customers, you get access to me and my VIP education platforms. ongoing discounts, ongoing freebies, live classes in all time zones all around the world, and so much more. So if you're interested in getting some essential oils that you know are really from nature, and this is important not only physically, but metaphysically as well, please reach out in the links below.
So I think that one of the nicest things about the moon is its ability to help us to create. I am at my most creative at the full moon, and it makes me laugh that Dexter has just like become this same lunatic model as I am. I just didn't for a long time. I'd have to take like valerian tablets to help me sleep. Then I just lent into it. I was like, well, okay, I'm just going to make sure I've got some work to do in the full moon, and I write my best stuff in the full moon. So now I've started to create a ritual that builds up to the new moon. So actually, first quarter of the moon is, I was born on first quarter, so that's good for me. So I like to sort of set myself an intention that I will be able to create such and such piece of work on the full moon, and I start to try and dream with it around about first quarter. And the oil that I think is the most clever for just bringing in so much inspiration is Osmanthus. So I'm going to make a just give an honorary mention to Clary Sage, but we've talked about Clary Sage so much and how good it is at manifesting, but also Clary Sage. But Osmanthus is just like this beautiful picture book that just goes, what beautiful thing would you like to see? And just set your intention. I want to know about that. And Osmanthus goes, well, here is a great big smorgasbord of everything that you want to do. And you have the most incredible dreams when you use Osmanthus. I love it. And so when we come to do the blends, I've made a beautiful blend that I use each month now at first quarter leading up to full moon, because like I say, I won't sleep at new moons, so there's no point doing at full moons, there's no point doing a sleeping blend for full moon. But yeah, just for dreaming and really connecting with the full power of the earth. I think one of my favorite things to learn when I first started to work with plants as a spiritual entity was understanding that the water in the earth moves in communication with the moon. Obviously, that's how tides work. But of old, the people knew that they shouldn't cut the resin trees, so frankincense and myrrh, because from the before the full moon. So what happens is all of the plants, and this is all of the plants, if you're planting by the moon, you'll know this. As the moon gets fuller and fuller and fuller, so it pulls more and more moisture out of the earth and takes it into the plants. So the plants pull up more moisture. And then as the moon starts to wane, the moisture drops out again. So if you can wait to the full moon to harvest your plants, you will have a much fuller and healthier plant. And so this idea that we are flowing with the water and flowing in dreaming, I love that. And Osmanthus is so good for that.
Oh, wouldn't it be amazing if they actually farmed, on big scale and didn't cut until after the full moon? It would be amazing to see what difference that would make to our food.
They do in France.
Wow.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. So my mother-in-law lives in France, and in a really really rural bit, and they all plant by the moon, and yeah, all festivals. And if you think about it, think about like the ancient Greek festivals and the Roman festivals, how you talked about how, what if it like the full moon landed on Tuesday, I think was your comment. Well, of course, if it was 28 days, it would always land on the same day. But they didn't used to have weekends in the old calendars. So they would just have festivals, many, many festivals, more festivals, religious festivals and civic festivals. But of course, these festivals would be in line with the calendar as well as with the moons and stuff. Yeah.
Amazing. Now, I know you are the master of the blends, but I do kind of want to throw in a bit of an idea with my third oil. We have talked about Clary Sage. We talked about it in a recent episode with that creation and manifestation for the new year or at any time as well. But I also really like, we tend to think of the full moon of, oh, we'll wait till the night comes. But as we've already discussed, we often have a day ahead of us before the full moon when we have to be in that yang state. My recommendation is if you can only spend one morning a month meditating, I would recommend that to be on the morning of the full moon. Because we know, and people that work with crystals talk about this a lot, that the full moon amplifies energies. So what I find, if you start the day in a bad mood, maybe you're running late, so you're stressed, maybe you're worried about something, maybe you're angry about something, any of those unwanted emotions, it spirals out of control. And that's where you do become the lunar tick. So what you want to do is sometimes we have to go to work, but can you get up 15 minutes earlier? And maybe I share on my social media, on my Instagram, on my Facebook, each month when we have the full moon in the morning, a blend of Clary Sage, because we know how balancing and harmonizing it is to the hormonal system, to the emotions. It also helps us to listen to our inner guidance. I also include eucalyptus, because eucalyptus, especially as an Australian, it's a really great cleanser. It is quite cooling as well. It's used to get rid of anger. And then a bit of white grapefruit. A little bit different from grapefruit, a regular pink grapefruit that we find mainly, but grapefruit's another great cleanser as well. So diffusing them and maybe putting something a little bit different in there depending on which new moon, or sorry, which full moon the sign or zodiac sign the full moon's in. And just diffuse that, inhale that, and just allow yourself to get rid of any stress so that you can, as you navigate throughout the day, find little moments of peace and allow yourself to come back in. So you can either spiral into control or spiral out of control. And working with this blend and Clary Sage and these other oils is a really great way to support you in doing that.
I think that's lovely. I will share actually. We do have a specific meditation that we do in as Melisai, and it's called the Walk of Infinite Flight, and it's a figure of 8 walk, and it's beautiful to do at dawn on these kind of days. So particularly I like to do it on the solstices and the equinoxes, but as you say, on the moons. And so what you do is you find 2 stones, 2 rocks that are bigger than a walnut but smaller than an apple, and you place them so kind of stand with your legs as far apart as you can, and then place the rocks by your feet, and then you start to walk, and you walk between them in a figure of 8. So what you're doing is you're staring into half space, so like staring into the distance but letting your eyes relax, so you're kind of not looking at anything. And so the best one that I've ever done was the first one that I ever did. And so the idea is that these you can do like a walk with a particular oil or a different priestess or a different goddess or what have you. It's a contemplation really. But the best one that I ever did was between joy and sorrow. And so this idea that you're walking between joy and then round sorrow and then joy and round sorrow. And it's incredibly good at teaching your brain about polarity, about understanding the opposite of. And all of these things really come through your body. And for me, it kind of is almost like watching a film. It's really, really freeing. And so you're doing it for around about 15, 20 minutes if you can. I like to put music on. And just walking between joy and sorrow is just beautiful on the full moon at dawn. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. So I know you've got some blends for us. Are there any other single oils, or do you want to dive into the blends now?
Yes, because you jumped out of sequence. You were trying to snatch all my oils and went out of sequence. So I haven't done 3 yet. And so my other oil is cardamom.
Ah, okay.
Oh, so the reason why, and I did have another one in in just in case she did it a lot of times to me, because I suspected this might happen today, because I know we've been working together for such a long time that we think similarly. So I thought this might happen. The other one is lemons. So let me tell you about them. So as I say, I don't sleep. I work through the night on the full moon quite often, and because it is work for me, so I want to write or I want to create or think about scripts or what have you. And for me, the best possible oil for that kind of creativity is lemon. So she's like, I always say she's like Scheherazade. So the woman who is the star, the central character of the story of 1001 Arabian Nights. And she is taken to a harem and picked out. And this sultan is saying, well, he loves all these women, but when they bore him, he just kills them off. So she decides, right, the only way that I am going to be able to stay alive is to tell this tale. And so she keeps him fascinated with these amazing stories, these incredibly exciting adventures over 1001 nights. And that's just like what Lemon's like. You just smell her and suddenly like full of ideas, full of creativity. And so I love that on the full moon. But as I say, the reason why I picked cardamom was because if you're doing your intention setting and starting out, right, I've got a new intention on the new moon, you should be kind of looking to see, as a sales manager, because I'm always looking at right targets and objectives and analysis, you know what I'm like. So I'm always looking at how are we doing against that. And if you're not careful, you can get very bogged down with, I didn't get that car I was going to manifest. There's this idea of, well, shoot for the moon and you may get the stars. Cardamon's very good at going, yes, but look what you did achieve. Look how far you did come. Look at this journey and look how far along the line you are. Because I think if you are doing this intentional thought setting, because the way that social media is and the way we live in a very much achievement is like money is success. That's just rubbish, but that's the world we live in. It's easy to kind of go, I still can't pay that flipping bill though, and think, well, then I've failed. But that's not true. And Cardamon's very good at going, yes, but what else did we achieve? Let's really look at this and think about this and really sit in our comfort of how great is this, what we've done so far. So that's a great full moon oil.
We've talked a lot about, like the floral oils that really help us to open up to the magic and these ones that kind of harness this creativity and stability within us. But I do want to give an honourable mention. I think oils such as white fir, white cypress, which is an Australian essential oil, it gives us an oil from its leaf and its wood, and I find especially the leaf oil absolutely captivating. And even white pine. These kind of big conifer oils that kind of have that connection to the white or the silver colours in their names, I just find their scents are both grounding and stabilizing, but also almost I get this stretching or this uplifting feel when I tune into them, kind of thing like that. You're well grounded like a big tree, but you are reaching up to the heavens. So if you are looking for that kind of stability, centering, grounding, upliftment, and even empowerment during the full moon, if that's what you need, then possibly some of these conifers that have that allusion to the white energy or the silver energy could be a really great option to lean into as well.
Yeah, I love that. And just really gives you that vision of what's happening to these trees under the moon. And so you got this beautiful sort of forest of conifers, and as the water's pulling up all of the water up through them, all the moon's pulling all that energy up and then making it all drop afterwards. So yeah, just think from a spiritual connection of like person to plant or human to non-human. It's a beautiful relationship. Yeah,
very much so. Right, show us these blends. I'm keen to find out what you got in store for us this week.
Well, I have to make apologies because they're looking very sad because the printer gave out late last night, but still. So where do I want to start? Let's start with forgive and forget. We're going back to hemp, obviously. And this is a really lovely blend. We can meditate with it on the full moon, but also we can use it as a rollerball and use it all of the time, of course. So I don't know whether I'm going to be able to read my Latin names through here. So I'm going to read it off first and then hold it up. So my essential oils in it are, of course, hemp essential oil. So 3 drops of hemp essential oil. 2 drops of blue cypress essential oil. I love the way that the blue oils, we talk about how physically they're like a liquid anesthetic. I also think metaphysically they're very good at being able to say switch your feelings off for a minute. That's what anesthetic does, right? So I've been really leaning into that, and I think blue cypress does that beautifully. And then just 1 drop of lemongrass. And the reason why lemongrass is because I always think it's very good at going, well, you've got all of these obstacles in your way, but what if we could get over them? And so in the case of forgiveness, it's like, I know they did that, I know they did that, I know they did that, I know you feel that, I know it's really really terrible, but what if you could get past it? So that's the 3 essential oils, and I've blended them into jojoba carrier oil and a little bit of hemp seed carrier oil. I have to say, me and hemp seed carrier oil is not a great mix. It gives me a headache, so I don't use very much of it. I don't know why it gives me a headache, and it makes me go really, really, really hot. So just in case anybody's thinking that happened to me, yeah, it happened to me. So I just have to show you've got the 3 kings on the other side, so I won't be able to read it, but there we go. So 4 mil of jojoba, and then 10 drops of hemp seed oil, carrier oil, and then the essential oils blended into that. And I like to put it on the back of my neck when I'm like daily, just so it gets into my brain nice and quickly. Contraindications, none really. Just not using it in the first 16 weeks of pregnancy. So that's that one. Yeah, just watch your maximum dilution with lemongrass because it's fierce. We don't want too much of that in the blend. So that's forgive and forget. I thought this was a rather provocative and rude name, Climax. I liked it. But the idea that we are just full of ideas and targets and everything. If we're living in those cycles, everything should be coming to a climax. And so this was a diffuser blend. I know you always laugh at me not using diffusers. I would obviously not use a diffuser because I like an evaporator. But this is to celebrate how far we've come. And I've just put some I put a warning not suitable for use in the first 37 weeks of pregnancy. That is topically if you decided to put it in a bath or whatever, which you could. So 3 drops of Jasmine Absolute, 2 drops of Cardamom essential oil, and just 1 drop of cedarwood. And I use Cedrus deodara, but you could use any cedarwood. You could use any of the Texan cedarwood, Himalayan cedarwood, juniper, Virginian cedarwood, any of those. They've all got that lovely kind of getting rid of negative thoughts energy to them. And I've got the wrong maximum dilution on it. Cedarwood can be used at 3%. That's left over from the other one. When the printer started to go bad. And then finally, and this is like go on, were you going to ask a question then?
I was just going to say, if I ever had to open up an indoor rock climbing business, I think I know the name I'd call that business. Call it Climax.
Oh, that's good, ain't it? That's good, ain't it? I like it. What you won't like is the state of the printer by this poor one. This is Lunatic Flow. It kind of matches it, matches its whole energy. So this is the blend that I use for, or I work with for dreaming when I use it at the first moon to help me to have the information coming in by full moon. I use this in the bath just so to amuse Adam because he knows that because he's always making fun of my bath blends. And again, the flipping safety is wrong. So we can't use this in the first 37 weeks of pregnancy because there's ylang ylang in it. So I've used blue tansy, ylang ylang, and osmanthus. 3 drops of blue tansy, 2 drops of ylang ylang, and 1 drop of osmanthus. And again, there's a lot of mistakes on this sheet. Sorry, it's because I had to change it loads of times. So there we go. And yeah, you wouldn't want to use that in the first 37 weeks of pregnancy. That's my Lunatic Flow. So those are my blends for full moon.
So I think the full moon is a really beautiful time that encourages us to slow down a little bit. And, as we kind of get to the end of the year, we find that people that work with the sun only stop and check in and look at where their life is going once a year. But those that choose to work with the moon, like us and those watching this video or listening to this podcast right now, we like to do it on a monthly basis. And as we know, it's a lot easier to correct our course and stay on track and stay in alignment with what we're here to do if we're doing those regular check-ins. And the new moon to the full moon to the dark moon cycle really allows us to do this. We've got these beautiful gifts from the plant world that also will support you in every single step of that. And we hope that in this video today, we've really been able to share some ideas on what you can do as you go through this time. Don't forget that there's probably someone in your life that loves working with the full moon as much as you do. If they haven't watched this video yet, make sure you share it with them and like and subscribe because we've got lots of other things to do with the moons and magic and astrology coming up in the future weeks as well. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. We'll see you very soon. Take care and blessed be.
Bye-bye.
I'm Elizabeth Ashley, UK Director for the National Association of Holistic Aromatherapy and founder of the Aromatic Mystery School, where essential oils meet the deeper, more mystical side of healing. Here you'll explore the spiritual, emotional and energetic dimensions of plants and learn how to weave them into your own rituals and well-being practices. If you're ready to work in a way that nourishes both your soul and your senses, join us at the Aromatic Mystery School. The link's right below.